So quick little contemplation related to some of the discussions I've been having on DNA as a fractal antenna, and DNA being structurally homologous to thought, which is the premise of my old molecular biology insight, was that thought is structurally like homologous, nearly identical to DNA. And so they have resonance, they tune into each other. That's what homology is. Like anything that's homologous to another structure tunes into it. Like when you see when you see two squares together and you see your mind go squares, that's the two squares in resonance with the single idea of square. So they're on the same frequency, they're on the same antenna because of their homology. And so DNA is in tune with itself because of homologous structures, or identical or similar homologous structures are on de facto they're emitting similar electromagnetic waves, and so they're going to have like a sympathetic resonance with each other, same way that tuning forks of the same shape have resonance with each other. And tuning forks that are homologous, like a tuning fork that's on a half node or a half octave away or a wavelength away, full octave, they can be different nodes, but they're homologous with each other, so they interact. So that homology is like an intuitive way of seeing, like, is something interacting with something else due to its shared frequency. And so since everything is fundamentally electromagnetism, everything that we can see, this is all aggregates of electron clouds. Everything you see is an aggregate of electron clouds around a positive skeleton. So it's everything you're looking at is an antenna. So it's like, what is thought? Like, what is thought? And people go, oh, we've done brain scans in that area, the brain's active. It's like, what is thought here? Right? Because even in your idea of a brain scan or doing stuff like that, you're doing that with thought. So in order to not be absolutely psychotic, you have to be like, you have to understand very deeply how thought works and what your relationship with it is and how it interacts with reality. How does thought interact with reality? Otherwise, all of your experiments are just absolutely delusional. So it's like, what is it? Like, where, like, okay, I'm thinking of I'm gonna think about closing my hand right now. I'm gonna close my hand. I'm thinking about closing my hand. So where is that? How do I know that I'm thinking about closing my hand? And what am I looking at? What am I perceiving my knowing with? Like, I know I'm imagining my hand closed. It's not closed, but I'm imagining it closed. How am I perceiving that imagination? What am I looking at it with, and where am I looking at it from? Like, there's a blue truck in front of me, and I look at that with my eyes, and it's there in space. And I have some distance from it, otherwise I wouldn't be able to look at it. So I can't be that blue truck. I'm some distance behind the blue truck, and I'm looking at it through space that it and I exist in. So that's what I see. So when I have now I have an imagination of my hand closed. I have an imagination of my hand closed, and so it has to be some distance away from me, just like that truck, or I wouldn't be able to see it. And then what am I seeing it with? How do I know that I'm imagining my hand closed? And is that imagination still there when I stop? Like this, I can look at something else and the truck is still there. Is that true for thoughts? If I look at a different thought, is the old thought still there? Or is it something that's happening? And if it's something that it's happening kind of in space. And so are there other things in that space that I'm not doing? Like maybe I am doing the imagination of imagining my hand closed. Maybe I'm doing that, but does it exist in space? And are there other things in that space where the imagination of me closing my hand exists? And you would say this has to be happening. So it's like there's the same way that vision implies a reality here that you're in and can move through. The perception of thought, the perception of imagination implies a reality that you're in and you can interact with it and move through it. But like, where is it? It's seemingly another dimension overlaid on this one. And so how are these different dimensional spaces connected together? Are they actually different dimensions? Like, is inside of my cell or inside of my body actually a different dimension than outside of my body? It kind of seems like a different dimension. They're cut off from each other. They have different representations of the whole, but it's like all in the same dimension. Like my body and your body are kind of like in the same dimension, but our inner space is kind of separate dimensions or additional dimensions. And so if you like, this is what's missing from science, is like all your theories and everything, like these questions, if you don't have an answer to these questions, you don't fundamentally scientifically understand how your thought is interacting with reality. So it's like it's without that contemplation, whenever you do science, you're leaving out the majority of the scientific method is dark to you, or it's like not included in the theory. And that's why everything's like so stupid. And if you understand how thought is, you can look at all this data that everyone's aggregated and see obvious things. Whereas like if everyone's been aggregating data, but they've been zero contemplation, zero perception of thought, like to the degree that they go, oh, the imaginal realm like doesn't even exist. But our theories are comprised of stuff in the imaginal realm, but the beings, the entities, and all the other things that exist in that imaginal realm are said to not exist, even though they're obviously like attached to, hooked on, like even creating the scientific intellectual theories, right? I don't know, it's a little bit insane. It's like, so to me as a science, I grew up that stupid. I grew up like in materialism, so I'm like stupid that way. And to a lot of people, like what I'm saying is kind of a no duh, nobody even needs to teach it or hear it. But to me, it's like always special because I grew up in such like poverty of lucidity when I went to school for my degree and got a job and all that other stuff. Like I grew up completely in the dark about like even remotely trying to think about the world accurately. I was like just thinking about the world and not just willfully not including anything that would make my understanding diminish. And I was in a culture of people that did that, and they called themselves scientists. And then it's like, it's just, yeah, it's aggressively stupid. The whole culture is aggressively stupid, and they very much like, their whole livelihood and everything and their sense of identity and all that depends on maintaining that aggressive level of stupidity, because without it, the whole world would fall apart. So it's like, as you get there, it's like you'll start to see stupidity like aggressively enforced, because it's financially and egoically inconvenient for the stupidity to end, really.